Hello, welcome to the show, 15 Minutes of Fame with Dawn Branch. I'd like to say thank you to my sponsors, TwinkleToesApparel.com in Georgia. These wonderful sandals that say Twinkle Toes. And they also have leotards and tights, all the wonderful accessories, even charcoal pouches that you can place into your dance bag. We have a new sponsor tonight, Spirit and the Word Ministries. My friend, Pastor Herrera, and his lovely wife, Minister Kim Herrera. They gave me this wonderful bag. Isn't that nice? So I'll put my dance stuff in here. Put my choco. Look, whoo, leotards. Well, I'm not wearing leotards, but you know what I mean. My dance stuff. Thank you, Spirit and the Word Ministries, and thank you for watching the show. Bye.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to 15 Minutes of Fame with Dawn Branch. Here's where we bring industry professionals into your home, where they share their journey of their success in their career. Tonight's guest is the one and only Mr. John Lara. Did I say that right?
That's right, you got it.
Oh my gosh. Audience, it was like crazy to get that. What a unique name. What is its origin?
Yeah, so it's my father's side of the family is Austrian. So my last name actually literally means teacher in Germany, in German. Yeah, so yeah, I know. And it's funny because we go to Germany all the time and touring, and I've been going there, since I was dancing even in Giordano's with Gus Giordano. So it's really cool that my last name literally means teacher in German.
Yeah, so names do have meanings, people. See?
That's right.
Okay, so you are an established, accomplished choreographer, artist, director. Anything else that I'm missing? Any other hobbies that you have that?
Yeah, so some of the other things that I love, I'm an avid ping pong player and bowler. I was actually captain of my high school bowling team, so that's a little known fact.
Can I just say sidebar? Do you remember the show Bowling for Dollars? Like, that's how old I
am. Yes, I remember that show.
Oh my gosh.
I used to love that show.
Of
Bowling
course.
for Dollars was the best. Yeah. So yeah, I like that's kind of two of my things that I love to do. Sing karaoke, which
of course.
Yes, satisfies my rock and roll fantasies.
I can't even imagine when you have time to do that with your busy schedule, which we're going to get into. But before we go to all of that, I want to know about your life before dance. Now, you said you were a bowler and you like to do karaoke. Born and raised in Queens. Tell us about that part of your life.
Yeah. So I'm from Queens. I grew up in Flushing, New York. Yeah.
F train. Was the F train there? What was it?
No, the 7 train.
The 7.
Yeah. End of the line on the 7 train, the last stop, Main Street, Flushing. So it was really great growing up in the city, and specifically in Queens, because I always describe it. I would walk to school. I went to public school, and when you walk to school in Queens, literally every block was a different group of people, had different smells and different sounds and languages, every block. So it was this wonderful, to use an old phrase, a melting pot, literally walking to school every day, which was always great. And it really, some of my fondest memories of growing up were literally those sights and sounds and smells from going to and from school. So yeah, that was something that I really cherish about my childhood. I was, I want to say I was a typical kid growing up in Queens. Played a lot of sports. I was a big baseball player for as long as I can remember, all the way through high school. And I just was always out, growing up really in the 80s. that's kind of when my, formative years were. Yeah, exactly. It was, it was a different time, of course, but just outside all the time. Like as much as you could be outside, we were outside, and having, the city as my playground was amazing. So,
Yeah.
it was just great. I wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Awesome. So what
Yeah.
were your plans for after high school then? You weren't going to dance. So what were you going to go to school for?
Yeah, so I thought a couple of things. I really thought that one of the things was to become an architect. In high school, I had a teacher who was one of those teachers that really helped you, develop interest. And I showed an interest in architecture, just that kind of design thing, which is kind of interesting because we'll get into that later. But that's exactly what choreography is. It's architecture, So I had an interest in that. When I got to college, I realized that wasn't for me, and this had nothing to do with dance. It just wasn't. It didn't fit like I thought it would. So I didn't really know, other than I was very excited to go to college to find out what I wanted to do. I didn't have this like, okay, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. I was really open-minded. I think growing up where I grew up, that open-mindedness makes sense. I was just exposed to so much, especially culturally, that I always had an open mind about everything. And I went into college the same way. So I went to college, not with a specific, major or a specific idea, but just say, let's find out. I have a lot of interest. And I remember my first year, it was just taking all those cool, what they call gen ed, general education classes, just like all these cool things. And we'll see what fits.
Dance on a Dare. What is that? Explain what that is, sir.
Yeah, well, I literally got dared to take a dance class by a girl I was dating, and really it changed my life. And she dared me because I would tease her sometimes about how easy it must be to be a dancer, blah, 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 all that stuff, which I know now is not true. But so yeah, she said, well, why don't you try it? Like, you'll see how not easy it is. And so I took a beginning level modern dance class on a dare. And this goes back to kind of my open-mindedness. I was like, I'll try anything. This is fun. And I was an athlete. In fact, at the time, I was rowing on the college crew team. So I went to the University of Buffalo, a state school, and I was on the crew team at the same exact time. So I went and took a beginning level modern dance class, and it really obviously changed my life. And, I attribute that really to the teacher that I had. The teachers, there were two teachers who co-taught the class. One was named Tressa and one was named Shelley. So I'll definitely tell them about this podcast. They're still dear friends of mine. And they just taught a modern class that was so enveloped in just the joy of movement. It wasn't a specific technique yet. It wasn't Graham or Horton or something that probably would have scared me away right away. But it was just this, let us move as free and big and joyous as possible. And that really hooked me.
And guys, his choreography is just like that. Wait till you see it. It's big, it's beautiful, mass. It takes over one person will take over the whole stage. It's incredible what you do. So
thank you. Yeah, that comes from that first class. Yeah,
from your first class. And I love how you gave homage to the teachers. So thank you, because as teachers, it's important. Right?
Yes.
I have to ask, is that young lady still dancing? Did you hire her into the dance company? What happened?
She had her own wonderful career. And then she became a chiropractor. So that is,
so you can refer people to her. And when you do those crazy acrobatics, wait till you see when he has his. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's right.
So it was the bigness, it was the broadness of the movement and the freeness of it.
It was, yeah.
And what I liked what you said, how you didn't get afraid because of the technique.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, can you touch upon that? Even though technique is important, it's really used for your movement style, for your transitions to prevent injury. So can you just talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Dance techniques of any kind, they're all great and all valid and all helpful, and we should learn as many as we can. One technique is not better than another technique. So it is just that those things are tools to use, right? Tools to have in your pocket. I always say in your tool belt to enhance your movement, to help your movement for safety, to learn how mechanically everything moves. But really the freedom and joy of just pure movement, despite technique, is really at the core of what we do. And sometimes we lose sight of that. Even we as professionals, we lose sight of that. So focused on the technique and stuff. And of course, for young dancers, it's such a hard skill to develop that you have to really go all in on that technique stuff. But we can never lose sight of why we dance, why we move, because it's joyous. And to find that balance is really the key. To find that balance of both just pure joy of movement and technical, whether virtuosity or just technical knowledge. How do you balance those two things? And I really, with the company and my whole career, even before I started the company, that was my goal, just finding that balance, where I didn't lose the joy of movement, and especially didn't lose the ability to project that joy through myself and now through my company, my choreography.
Thank you. Any advice for late bloomers coming into the game?
Yeah. I don't get caught up on the technique, right? Because the fact is, especially if you're talking about the classic techniques, any kind of classic technique, it's hard to, if you start late, to really get those at a very high level. So I would say, and how I approached it is, I really tried to diversify and broaden my skill set as a dancer. So I knew that I wasn't going to be in a ballet company starting dance at 19. I just didn't have the technical training that you need to be like that. But I also knew that I could use that along with other techniques, modern technique, jazz technique, and everything in between, to make myself a whole well-rounded dancer, a really holistic mover, where I could adapt and then develop my own style, right? Whether I was going to create or not, still have a personal style. So my advice is for late bloomers is to don't get caught up on one thing, but really allow yourself to experience it all. And also, when you start dancing older or late bloomers, as you say, you already have a plethora of style. You already have this great personality of movement, of physicality, because that's how we all grow as humans. We become very, we have our own style. Forget dance, just as humans. So don't lose sight of that when you dance, right? Bring that to everything else you're learning. Combine them.
Okay. Thank you for that. Since you found yourself in college, I'm going to assume that my next question is, go to college. Right? What's the difference between, I had a guest on the show and we talked about talent versus skill. So when you hire dancers, talk about the difference and why possibly going to school, going to college and get an education is more important than just having talent.
Right.
Right? What are we gaining aside from this?
Yeah. Well, you're gaining, any artist in any realm, okay? The art comes from experience. The art comes from history. The art comes from information passed on to you, through you, and how you disseminate it. And college is, in my mind, for a dancer, the perfect avenue for that. You can, if you approach college correctly, learn so much from so many different people. As far as dance goes, you're getting a big variety of training. You're learning about dance history, which is so important to the development of an artist. You're learning about the people that came before you and that cultivated what you are doing right now. And then hopefully you're inspired by that. Also, in college, you learn other things too. So my dancing as a performer and choreography is not only because of what I learned in dance class, it also comes from those Greek and Roman mythology classes that I loved taking in college. It comes from rowing on the crew team and learning about the mechanics of how a boat moves, with an oar and all that stuff. It comes from everything that I did while I was training and continue to do. So when people talk about college versus not, I think to keep it as simple as possible, you're just going to learn more as a human being by going to college. Not to mention that you're getting hopefully great training along with all that, and a diverse training, right? Learning many different things. You can obviously focus on something if you're like, hey, I like jazz dance, so I'm going to focus on that. But that doesn't mean you throw away everything else. You still learn all this other stuff. So I think really that's what it is. That question is timeless. You get asked it all the time. I get asked it all the time. And as far as the company goes, I prefer them to be college educated dancers, right? Because I think they bring something to the company that is more, again, holistic and well-rounded as a human being. And that's what I look for. I don't not hire dancers because they don't have a college degree. I have hired dancers, but it's more often that I seek out and drawn to dancers that have that higher education.
Thank you. I guess that's what the Eric Hawkins company saw in you when they hired you. Segue.
Yeah, nice.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about your first professional company.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh,
as I had to study his work in school, right? So there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
So go ahead.
So again, I had learned in college, and this just goes to show, although no one at the University of Buffalo taught Hawkins technique, I certainly learned about him in the history books, and I learned and I knew, and I had an idea and a respect. And then when I kind of got asked to join the company, I had like come take class and let's see what you are. It's like, okay, I know where this is. I may not have studied it, but I know I read where he's coming from. I kind of looked back. I said, okay, get it. See what's going on here. I'm not going to go in thinking I know it all, but I knew the name, I knew the legacy, and I knew kind of what they were looking for, at least aesthetically. So that, first that was the real. I had done some work in New York City with some, fledgling companies. A man named John Passafiume and Paul Sanasardo were two big influences on me professionally out of college. But Eric Hawkins was like that first real company with a nice contract and touring and, legacy and all that. So that was really a wonderful time for me. And I just felt that I could immerse myself in this technique that I'd never studied and just take it all in, and didn't have to go in there and be a hot shot or anything. And it was also wonderful about that company. I was performing with dancers, 15 years older than me, because it's one of those beautiful companies that, you can dance for a long time, and they love that. So there was me at, 24, 23, something like that. And, dancing with a 40-year-old. It was wonderful. I'd been in the company and the legacy and actually trained with Eric. So, yeah, it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Okay, so now you have a modern contemporary company, and then you end up in the Rockettes. How did that happen? Right?
Well,
you go from
right.
So explain how that happened and what was that like?
Well, that actually, so before the Rockettes and how I got to the Rockettes, and I was only there for one Christmas spectacular, but it was a great spectacular. Yeah, I got into Gus Giordano Jazz Dance Chicago. So from Eric Hawkins, that was done, for me, and I auditioned for Gus Giordano and this great, amazing jazz dance company. And I got in, and that was in 1997 when I got into that company. And that was, although I had studied jazz dance at the University of Buffalo. They had and still have a wonderful jazz dance program. Jazz teachers, a man named Tom Ralabate, who is retiring this year. So, Tommy, if you're watching this, congratulations. But he was one of the great jazz teachers of all time, and still is. So I learned a lot about jazz, and including Gus Giordano and his technique. So I got into that company, and it was great to be able to use those skills that I had learned in college because I was doing all modern. John Passafume, Paul Sanasardo, and obviously Eric Hawkins, modern dance, modern dance, modern dance. Then I get into Giordano's, and I'm wearing the jazz shoes again, and I'm doing the pirouettes, and I'm doing all the great jazz stuff and learning his classic choreography and his technique. And through that, people in that company had performed in the Rockettes during off times, which is usually November and December. It's kind of true for most dance companies because of Nutcrackers or Christmas shows. So yeah, I auditioned for the Rockettes show and got it, and did the show in Branson, Missouri. So I spent 2 months in Branson, Missouri, performing with the Radio City Rockettes. It was great.
Okay, so explain to the young kids out there the difference in training and rehearsals for a company versus the Rockettes. How you have to be on point, and there's a difference. It counts, so like extremely important. So let us know about that real quick.
Yeah, so you go there and you have X amount of weeks to learn it and get it right. There is no leeway. There's no like developing it. There's no like this. You go to rehearsal and then you make sure you come back to rehearsal the next day knowing what you learned the day before, and you are on your counts, and that's a great skill to have. Yeah, it's not like that so much in company work. There's more cultivation, there's more time, more input. No input on this. This is the step, and you got hired because we believe you can do it, so you better do it. And that's it. And that also, whether you like working like that or not, that is a great skill to have. The ability to be able to pick things up and do it the way you are being paid to do it, the way you're being asked to do it, the contract that you signed and you auditioned for. So that was a great experience because up until then, right, I hadn't had to do that. That wasn't part of what in college, they luckily at the University of Buffalo, they do train you how to do that, which is wonderful. But as a professional, I hadn't had to do it yet. And so getting in there and having I don't know if it was 3 weeks maybe of rehearsal, and doing all this and learning your track and stuff, it was amazing and a great learning experience for me. Yeah, and don't shy away from that. Even if you think you're not a dancer that can do that, yes, you can, right? We as humans, we know how to memorize things. We can learn how to learn stuff fast. Like,
you better say that. But let me explain to you. These kids don't get it. Like an hour. Well, I'm a lot older than you, but there was no video. Hey, can you record this for me? It was like pick up. So
yeah, you didn't record it on your phone and take it home at night.
You had to learn that. And let's talk about this.
You write it down. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Now, were you taught that in college how to write? Yeah. Okay. See, that's something else that's important.
Yeah. I still have those notebooks. Absolutely. I still have those notebooks.
Good for you.
Yeah. How to write it down, how to effectively notate, things. And so you can remember them and get it right. Oh yeah. In that Rockettes rehearsal, everyone's notebook was on the side. So you learned the phrase, and if they were working with something else, you were at your notebook writing it down. That's what you did. Yes. And then you practice it. There wasn't anything else but that. It was 100% focused in rehearsal. And then you took that notebook at night and you made sure you knew it coming back the next day. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
It's a great skill.
You like the cold though, sir. Buffalo, Chicago. I tell you.
I know.
So now you're in Chicago. Freezing.
Right.
Gus Giordano. Talk about that experience. God. Jazz.
Yeah.
Official jazz. And go.
Yes. Yeah. So that was amazing. And I have to say, first and foremost, that Gus was still around and alive and working with the company when I was there, and it was amazing to have this man there and just giving his input and all the stuff. It was wonderful. The beauty of his work and the Giordano legacy was that it was this equal parts like power, passion, and really specific movement, right? So you kind of had to have that that passion that we learned, that we have hopefully as dancers, combined with precision, right? And combined with the power of his technique and style is all about that. And Nan Giordano, who
yes,
runs
Miss
the
Nan.
company,
Yes.
Miss Nan, she's all about that. She continued that for her father. She was really in charge when I was there, so she, was at the top. So, and that was instilled. So right away, it was get in there. Now, remind you that I came from Eric Hawkins. Which was a completely different approach to movement, right? It wasn't about the power. It wasn't about that type of precision. There was a precision, but it wasn't that type of precision. So I get there, and that first day, that first week, I mean, it was okay, like many pirouettes, and it's this is where this goes, and you have to be precise in this thing, but it wasn't sterile. It was still passionate. It was still a stylistic vibe that I love. And really, that's why I stayed there for so long, because it combined these things, all the stuff I learned in college about being very precise with my movement, and from ballet, jazz, modern technique, all of that, learning the intricacies of movement, combined with this real artistic passion for jazz dance and the legacy of jazz dance. So, it was, you asked me to describe something. Well, it was, yeah, even in class, it was like quick. It was, I can't remember specific, but it was like, okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, 7 minutes, and doing all these rhythms and this and that. And I had to be on it and turn it and spotting really quickly. I hadn't spotted so quickly since college, and just all that stuff really came back. And it was difficult. That's why it was so difficult, because I hadn't done it so long. But it was in there. It was in there from college. And it was like, this is the challenge I'm looking for. Can I, have physicality in my movement, this athletic physicality that I was drawn to, but also have to really be mindful of my precise technique and where my arm is and where my focus is and all that stuff.
So you pretty much matured in that company. You stayed there the longest, right? Let's talk about how you were taken under the wing and pushed up, rehearsal director. Like, talk about your steps, your progress.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, right away.
Right?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, right away, I definitely knew that this is the place I wanted to be and invest in, and really show them that I was here to stay. And it was mutual, from Nan Giordano and Gus. They saw something in me that they wanted to bring out. And what I value the most about my time there was they gave me the ability to do that. It was because of both Nan and Gus that I am the educator, the choreographer, the leader, the director I am today. It really is. And although I don't, we're not a jazz dance company, and I don't teach Giordano technique anymore because I'm not there, and I wouldn't do that. It is instilled in me. Yeah, we'll come back to that. It is instilled in me the values that they taught me, of how to teach properly, how to lead properly, how to create and cultivate dancers, and all that. So they gave me the space for that, and they gave me the opportunity for that. And it wasn't right away. And this is what I respect also. So I was promoted to rehearsal director and then associate director. But before that, and in that time, they didn't just say, go ahead, John, teach. Go ahead. No. I had to do all this stuff. I had to take the beginning level jazz dance technique classes. I had to watch the teachers. I had to earn the ability to teach a Giordano technique class. And once I did, I went back to my college training and I wrote the notes. And I took their syllabus and I made sure that when I walked into the class, even for beginners, because you teach, right? You teach those beginners. I was following that syllabus And I was saying, okay, we teach it like this, and this is what I'm going to do. And then slowly over the years, of course, adding my own flavor, adding and developing my own voice. But it all came from that very codified, specific technique that I valued and that I respected. And that's where I was able to grow and bloom and develop my own voice, but it was from something very specific that came a long time before me.
Your first piece that you choreographed for the company, talk about that.
In college, I fell in love with choreography, fell in love with the art of choreography, the history of choreography. I took, composition classes, choreography classes, creative movement classes, and I knew there was a choreographer inside me, but I wanted to cultivate it. I wanted to learn more before I put stuff out there. So in Chicago, it's a great city for dance because it's not as overwhelming as New York City, but there's a lot of opportunity as well. So I had these opportunities to choreograph, little things that were happening with friends, and started developing ideas and stuff. And then Nan saw that, and she saw me like doing choreography here. And then we used to have at the Giordano School, I think they still do a student showcase where the teachers could choreograph on the Giordano students, college students and other scholarship students at the school. So I started doing that. I started playing with little things, and she started noticing. She's like, okay, man, I see something. And then she said, all right, we want you to do a piece, and a small piece, a duet. So my first piece that I was commissioned, I was paid to choreograph.
Whoa, okay.
I know, right? Yep. For the company was a piece called Cesura, Cesura, and it's Latin, and it means pause. It's like a brief pause or interruption. And it was a very, very, how do I put it, sensual duet. And it was, they still do it actually. They brought it back a couple of years ago. I loved it. So this was in 2000, I believe. I choreographed that piece. And yeah, that was it. And that just snowballed with the success of that piece, snowballed into me choreographing a lot more on the company and also outside, and really starting to develop my voice again, all because Nan and Gus gave me that opportunity and saw something.
Oh, look at that. Thank you, Miss Nan and Mr. Gus.
Yep.
So, okay. All right, what do I want to ask now? Where are we? I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about, let's talk about your company. talk about the
Right.
name of your company and its conception and how you said, okay, Chicago, it's my time to shine and go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll first talk about kind of how it came about, and then I'll get into like the style of it. So
Okay.
in 2007, I started the company, and it was called Lara Dance, right? When I started it in 2007, and I started it back in Buffalo, New York, which you know, I didn't want to start it in Chicago where there was a lot of dance companies. Didn't want to come back to New York City yet. It was too much, and I hadn't been there for so long. And Buffalo, and specifically the University of Buffalo, is always very supportive of me. So starting a company there, business-wise, also was a great idea because it wasn't inundated with professional dance companies. So, you know, we could go there and set up and establish and then really have a nice foundation, I believe. And it was great. So started Lara Dance in 2007, and the goal of it was to really even more strengthen and develop my specific voice as a choreographer and develop that specific style. So ultimately, and what I think now it is, and what I want people to look at it as, is when they say Lara or Lara Dance, or what the company is called now, which is John Lara Dance Company, my full name, is that it is self-describing. So when you say Graham, when you say Martha Graham, whether you know the words modern dance or jazz dance or not, Graham puts a picture in your head. It's like, oh, okay, I can see her and she's doing this or she's doing that or she's doing the other thing. When you say Alvin Ailey, right, you get a picture in your head, and it's self-describing, right? It defines itself, right? We as dancers can trace the lineage and the technique of it to modern and jazz, or a combination of ballet or everything, but it describes itself. That's what I want ultimately. So, but again, I know that doesn't happen right away, right? And it just doesn't happen because I make it up. It happens because there's a base, and the base is exactly that. It's modern and jazz dance base. One of the greatest things that was ever said about my choreography and the company was by Dance Magazine. And they said, you know, Lara Dance is on the cusp of jazz modern fusion. And I love that because that's exactly what it is. It is modern dance and jazz dance combined. And again, I'm not the first to do it. I won't be the last. It's not about that. It's just those are the two forms that I love, modern and jazz dance, right? As far as an artist, artistically, right? And it's the two forms I relate the most to, obviously. So it is 100% a combination of those. I always say that I approach all movement as a modern dancer. I really do. When I develop work, when I feel work, when the style that I use, the way I teach is approached from a modern dance point of view. But I love the jazz dance aesthetic. I love the product of jazz dance. I love the excitement and the accessibility of jazz dance. I love the voice of jazz dance. So that's how I always approach it. And I learned both of those things in college and as a professional, but the value of both modern and jazz dance. What we are not, and this is the only time I correct people, is that we are not a contemporary dance company. I do not use that word contemporary dance at all. We are only a contemporary dance company because we exist now, right? So again, remember, Martha Graham was a contemporary dance company when she was around. It's just, you know, it's now. So everybody's contemporary right now. But if you want to talk about what style is it, what technique is it, it's based in modern and jazz. And I think we're getting close, that it's self-describing. So, you know, like when you were saying in the beginning, oh, when I think about your work, you take up the space and all that stuff. That's exactly what we want. That's exactly how we want to be.
Well, we just viewed your video and it was amazing. So again, just wonderful work that you're doing, vibrant. Let's talk about real quick costuming. Now, do you do the whole thing, or you do everything? Lighting design?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh,
No.
whoa.
I was nodding because yes, we need to talk about that. Yeah, no, I can barely match my own clothes, so I don't.
Okay.
I cannot design costumes. Yeah. So I have over the years I have had so many great costume designers and people that have done that, and now we have a costume designer that has been working with us for 5 years now, I think, and her name is Laura Banner. She just is so great. So I count on her a lot. And I have a wonderful lighting designer, two of them. One named Cam Hobbs, who's been with me since my Giordano days. He worked at Giordano's with me as a technical director. And Jeremy Granger. They both design my lights. And we do and will always, bring in other voices as well to design and stuff. But those are my core designers, and they speak our language, and we all speak the same language now. So we've gotten to know each other, and I think that's very important. Not to close yourself off to other things, but to have a core group that you can count on. So they know my work, they know my aesthetic, they push me to try new things, and I push them to try new things, and it's really worked out very nicely.
So we have some photos of their work. So let's take a look at some of your photos. Talk to us a little bit about, you have a concept in your head about a bridge and tunnel, and then you have a meeting, right? And then you say, hey, this looks pretty, like your costume designer will say, this is what your vision is, or this is what goes on. Okay, well, so now let's see.
Yeah, look, very pedestrian. Their costumes are pedestrian, because that piece is about my high school years in Flushing, in Queens. So bridge and tunnel is what they call kids that do not live in Manhattan. They call us bridge and tunnel kids, because you got to take a bridge or a tunnel to get into Manhattan, right? So that's where that came from. And really, these costumes were originally designed by Cindy Darling of Buffalo, New York, when we were based in Buffalo. And they have since been changed a little bit, but based on her design, Laura Vanner now took it here. Because I choreographed that piece in 2002, I believe. It was actually on Giordano's originally. Yeah, it's one of my older pieces.
Look at this shot here.
Yeah, so that's the piece I will say that I designed the costumes, because there are no costumes in that. It's two male dancers.
The lighting is amazing too. Look at that.
Oh the lighting is breathtaking in that. So they're wearing little briefs, and their bodies are painted. We just did that in Florida actually a couple of weeks ago, or whenever we were there in September, and I still go backstage and help paint them. I love it. So
I can imagine how long that takes. That's awesome. So look, the photographer, let's see who that is. Miss Keisha Leah.
Keisha Stevens. Yeah, you know her, right?
Great job. We love.
Yeah, we've been working with Keisha down in Florida, so we love her.
Yeah, amazing work, guys. So here, everyone, this is his website. If you want to learn more about the company, you would come here, and of course he has his contact information, and we will have all of that for you at the end of the show. Wonderful, sir. Such great work. Okay, we're almost done. So what would you say to the aspiring choreographer who has no budget, no space, right?
Yeah.
How did you do it? Talk about the work that goes into this.
Yeah, so that will always be a problem. That's not going to change, right? So it's one of those things that, nowadays we're definitely working together more to create space and opportunity for everybody. But it's still the arts. It's still the arts, so it'll always be, a lower importance than other things. So, culture in our country and all that stuff. So, what do you do? Well, first and foremost, you make sure you develop relationships with people that are, friends and colleagues and stuff like that, where you can share resources and find creative ways to utilize your network. I think this is something that we often forget, is that just like in any business, really, and you are your business as an artist, so you got to treat it like that. You're not going to get the big influx of money and time and opportunity right away. So it's how do you use your resources? Well, it's all about the friends you make. And when I say friends, it's all about the contacts you make. It's all about the people you meet. So when I was coming up, and going to workshops and going to intensives. And I was, trying to choreograph, like putting my work out there. Everyone I met, I thought of as like, okay, what can I offer them? And what can they offer me? And I want to cultivate this relationship because it will come back around. And that community that you create is really what's going to fuel your creativity and opportunity. So when it's frustrating, say, oh my God, I can't afford to get rehearsal space. Well, for example, I remember when I was in Chicago and trying to find space, I went to this community center that didn't have a dance floor, right? But they had this empty space. It was in the neighborhood. And I said, hey, can I just use this? And they said, sure, we'll just, volunteer here for a couple hours a week. And then you can use the space. I said, oh, perfect. Yeah, I'll do that. Just so I can have some time to create some stuff with my friends who are also doing it for free. So yeah, it's looking at the opportunities that aren't as obvious. And really that comes from your connections, not only as a dancer, but just as a human being, just as you in the world, and where you can cultivate in that. And that's the advice I really think that we forget sometimes, that you are not just a dancer, you are not just a choreographer, you are a human being, and you live in this world with everybody else. So use all of that to help you, right? And find that support system, and also find ways that you can help others, because it all comes back around. How can you be part of society and stuff in other ways? And then you can also develop your voice as a choreographer, as a person, as an artist, and all that stuff. So the opportunities will be there, but it takes steps, So, the opportunities I have now were nowhere near me when I started doing this. And I've been doing this for a long time, and it was a grassroots development. And it was, let me use friends and family. I don't want, you know what I mean when I say use. Let me tap into that. Let me put myself out there and in ways that aren't as obvious. And then everything else falls into place. And share. Yeah, be a good person. Don't be selfish about it.
Yes. I want to go back to, and don't steal. You didn't say that,
exactly.
but you talked about how you honored his work, that you chose not to. You said you wanted to go back to that. Is there anything you want to add to that? With now everyone putting your work might be on YouTube, and then you go someplace and a little imitation of your work. What do you want to say about that?
Well, I will say, from my personal perspective, don't do it. Right. Like have some respect, right? Not only for our art form, but for yourself, but how I approach it. So I do get asked a lot to teach jazz class, to teach specifically Giordano jazz, because I was in the company for 10 years and it was my life, and I taught it at a very high level. But I stopped in 2007. I started my company in 2007 and developed my own teaching pedagogy and, my own technique, which is hopefully. So I say no, and not because I don't like it. It's because I'm not there anymore. I'm not doing it. And if I were still doing it, then I could teach it. And I think that we lose sight of that a lot. I think that a lot of people will just, they take one class in something and they think they can teach that technique, and, it's like, that's not how this thing works. And we have to honor and respect where things really come from, right? Where the history of things are. And, I think that it's tough because we want to expose young dancers to many things, right? So as a teacher now I don't teach young dancers a lot. So, but I know that it's hard because you want to say, oh, I'd love for them to experience, a Horton class. I'd love for them to experience a Graham class, or this jazz technique or that jazz technique. And, you know, so it's finding that balance of how to give that to them without giving it to them in a watered down way that isn't yours. So I think that we have to instill in our young people, that our young dancers, that go and learn from the people that really know, learn from the masters of those techniques and styles, and don't just, you know, throw them away because they're not as relevant anymore, right? Go and you want to take a Giordano class, you want to learn, go to Nan Giordano, go to the source, right? You want to do, you know, a Luigi jazz class, go to someone who teaches real Luigi. You want to take a Graham class, go to someone that has that education and that history. And I think that will perpetuate the respect that dance, and especially classic techniques, really need to have and continue to have to propel this art form, and to know, you know, where it's going to go, and not just become watered down versions of everything, you know, which is just what we don't want. And to develop new voices. New voices only develop, I believe, new voices only develop from a strong base of something else. You know, I had a strong base in Giordano, right? And that allowed me to develop my own voice.
Wonderfully said. Oh, where do we go from here? Okay, I know I have to let you go. It's our time. COVID, before we go, COVID.
Oh yeah.
Right? It affected us, but we got through it.
Yep.
Will you still do workshops online? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, you know, what we learned is the effectiveness of Zoom and online classes. And although it was a little bit of a pain, we all learned how to do it, and it was wonderful. And now, just like anything else, I think what we'll do is we'll take that knowledge and see how we can combine it with what we do now. Every part of life is a learning experience, and we want to grow from it. So what we want to do is obviously go live, which we have been and doing all that, but give those opportunities to also engage this way. And you know what I love the most is that you will never, what we do, because we tour and all that stuff, we reach certain audiences, but now we can be accessible to so many. And that's the beauty of this. That's what we need to take. Not that was a year that was difficult, right? It was more difficult for other people besides us. How do we now use that to allow someone to take a class from us that would never be able to take a class from us because of barriers, whether it's cultural, economic, social, right? Whatever, geographic barriers, physical barriers. Now we can. So I think it's tapping into that and saying, okay, we have these platforms now that we can use to enhance it in other directions that we haven't gone. We did, you know, when we did now our shows, sometimes when we were just in Orlando, it was simulcast. So we had the live show, and then they also live streamed it. It's like, why not? Why not? Yeah, it's not taking away from our audience at all. I think that's too a mistake that some of us might make. It's like, oh, virtual is going to take away from live. No, it will not. It will not. No, that's living in fear of something new. We cannot have fear of new things. We need to embrace them. And it will not take away from your live audience. It will enhance everything. More eyes on us, the better. More people that see, that experience in this art form in general, not just John Lehrer Dance Company, but this art form in general, the better for everyone.
You mentioned Orlando, so I cannot let you go without saying thank you to Miss Follansbee for allowing you to have, you know, she gave me your information to be on the show. Yep. She is a forerunner here in Orlando, and I know you've worked with her for many, many years. We love Miss Follansbee, so shout out to her. And Dr.
She is an angel. She is an angel. Yes. And I'm honored to say one of my truly best friends in this world, and we've developed such a great relationship, and just I trust her to the moon and back. She's amazing.
Last words, Mr. John. Last words.
So just you know, follow us the way that is. We have all the ways to follow us. We are so lucky and blessed that we have been back in full rehearsals since May together. We've been on, I think, 4 or 5 tours already, including Orlando, where we had a bunch of shows in September. In fact, tomorrow morning, I have a 7 a.m. flight. We are going back on tour to Tampa. So we have a show in Tampa at the University of Tampa next Friday, an outdoor show, which is going to be great, in a place called Plant Park. And we're performing, and the students are performing. It's this big, wonderful collaboration we're doing. And then we head off to Europe. So we are doing a month-long tour to Europe in January. So we are in heavy rehearsals for that right now. And like I said, I can't believe how lucky we are to be doing it again, and be safe and healthy and creating and working and all that stuff, and engaging with communities and audiences all around the world again. And so never take that for granted.
Absolutely wonderful interview. Thank you so much. And not bad from a young man from Queens. Right?
That's right.
You.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for all you do. And I will place your contact information under your name.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you for watching 15 Minutes of Fame. And thank you so much, sir, for your continued success and your energy and your creativity and all that you do. And who knew? Dance on a Dare would change your life.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dawn.